I'd ask everybody to please thank you for coming to this evening's town board meeting of March 11th, 2024, the town of Amherst. We're going to begin this evening in memory of Charles Gilbert, a veteran Air Force officer and a member of the Eggertsville Community Association for a long time. With that, I would ask everybody please stand for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dennis, you here?
I'll lead it.
Go ahead.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose front rise and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Next, I would ask our town clerk to please call tonight's roll.
Supervisor Copa.
Everybody, please be quiet. Go
All
ahead.
right,
Please repeat the roll.
Yes. Supervisor Copa.
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin.
Present.
Councilmember Berger.
Here.
Councilmember Zuccalla.
Here.
And Councilmember Marinucci.
Here.
Next, I'm going to motion the minutes from Monday, February 26, 2024. I'll move them as they appeared in the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a couple of public hearings this evening. I'm going to ask our town attorney to please read the rules of order for the town.
Thank you. With regard to public participation at town board meetings, there will be several opportunities throughout the night for you to address the town board. I will review with you the town board's rules of order with regard to decorum, public hearings, and public expression. For your convenience, there are copies of the full rules of order available for your review in the containers at the door to this chamber. You're also able to find copies of tonight's agenda. The rules of order and full agenda packets are also available on the town's website. With regard to public decorum, decorum must be maintained throughout tonight's meeting. Pursuant to the rules of order, speakers shall address the board as a whole and refrain from partisan political commentary, personal, impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks, catcalls, noisemakers, or other outbursts that disrupt the order of the meeting. Any person who makes such remarks or otherwise disrupts the meeting with loud outbursts, shouting, threats, or other disruptive behavior shall, at the discretion of the supervisor, or after a motion and majority consensus of the board, be ruled out of order. With regard to public hearings, there are a number of public hearings scheduled for tonight. The petitioner may present for up to 15 minutes. Following the petitioner, neighborhood representative or their attorney may also have 15 minutes to comment on the subject of that hearing. Thereafter, other speakers at all public hearings may only speak once and comment for up to 3 minutes. The town clerk will ring a bell to let you know you have 30 seconds to finish, and the clerk will again ring a bell a second time when your time is finished. Written comments may be submitted at any time prior to the close of the hearing and will be included as part of the official record for the hearing. With regard to public expression, there are two opportunities for you to address the board with comments on topics not covered within the public hearing scheduled for tonight. Per the rules of order, the purpose of public expression is to allow for the public to formally communicate with the board on any matter involving Amherst. This is not designed to be a conversation with the board, but an opportunity for the public to express their opinion on issues that the board will cover during that meeting, or to bring attention an issue involving Amherst. Speakers may comment for up to 3 minutes. Again, the town clerk will ring the bell once when you have 30 seconds remaining and twice when your time is finished. There's a sign-up sheet at the podium for you to indicate your interest in speaking. Once those that have signed up are finished, the supervisor will ask if there are any additional speakers who would like to comment. A reminder that decorum must be maintained. All remarks should be addressed to the board as a whole and not to any single member thereof. In the event a speaker's inquiry is urgent or their comment is inaccurate, the supervisor or town board member may respond for up to 1 minute after closing public expression. Thank you for your adherence to these rules of order.
Okay, thank you. There are 3 public hearings on our agenda. One of them we've been asked to adjourn, and our intent is to adjourn it to March 25th. It's Resolution 210 on 46, 54, 60, 68, 74, and 84 South Linden Street, a bicentennial comprehensive amendment. I'm going to motion to adjourn that public hearing to March 25th at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That leaves 2 public hearings tonight. The first is on 59 Kmar Drive parking restriction. It's Resolution 208. I'm going to motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Chris Schregel from our engineering department.
Good evening, members of the town board. My name is Chris Schregel. I work for the town's engineering department and also act as the traffic safety coordinator. Tonight's first public hearing is related to establishing a parking restriction on Kmar Drive for a distance of 125 feet along a curve. The request originated from residents of the Willow Ridge Drive area, where it was then reviewed by the Traffic Safety Board at its August 2023 meeting. The location on Kmar that is specifically being looked at tonight is between Edgewater and Sweetwood Drives. The resident requests, they had multiple concerns. Many residents spoke of high speeds and a recent crash that occurred. Residents of Kmar also voiced concern that there are visibility issues around the bend of Kmar Drive just north of Edgewater Drive. That is the subject of tonight's public hearing. Furthermore, the residents suggested that the town consider adding a parking restriction on the inside of that curve adjacent to 59 Kmar. The Traffic Safety Board took a look, and their recommendations were twofold. One, they recommended curve advisory signage in both directions approaching that curve with an advisory speed limit of 15 miles per hour. After that meeting, a memorandum was sent to the highway superintendent for posting those advisory speeds. And lastly, again, why we're here tonight, they recommended a one-sided parking restriction on the inside of the curve, as shown on the screen here in red, for a distance of 125 feet, starting at the driveway of 59 and going again about 20 feet past the point of tangency. This is a all hours, all time parking restriction. There was concurrence with the residents there that they were accepting this resolution as proposed tonight. With that, I'll turn it over for questions and comments.
Okay, questions from this board first? Okay, are there comments from the audience tonight on Kmar? Anybody? No? Okay, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing at this time.
Second.
And Chris, are we moving the resolution tonight, or are we doing this? Do we need to take an action on a seeker in order to do it? No?
No, you can just vote on it.
All right, I'll motion to adopt the resolution regarding 59 Kmar Drive parking restriction as it appeared in the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda tonight is Resolution 209. It's a rezoning of 1635 North French Road. I'll motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, members of the town board. Ari Goldberg from the law firm of Barclay Damon, and for the petitioner, Tori Hirsch. This is a rezoning request to rezone 1635 North French to NB from its current zone of R3. This was previously before you in regards to comprehensive plan amendment, which you previously approved. It's just off North French near the 990 and the Campbell North French intersection. It's adjoining 1639-1641 North French, which houses a gymnastics studio, a dance studio, and other offices. So from the aerial, you can see the existing development that's right there. It's a different zone from what's currently at 1635 North French. Part of why we're looking to rezone the property is for future consideration of a development on 1635, replacing the underutilized single-family home that's there, replacing it with about 9,600 square feet of retail and commercial. I think it's a good complement to what's already there. I was there on Monday waiting for my daughters to finish with dance and was looking for a place to get a cup of coffee. There's not really anything around that. With this, you have the ability to participate in the commercial activities of the area and go to the other retail in that parcel. Subsequent to the request, there would be a site plan from the petitioner. We're still in the concept phase of that, but we've already done some of our due diligence, reaching out to the New York State Department of Transportation and County Department of Public Works with regards to any future improvements of Campbell and North French. We understand that from our participation in the Traffic Safety Board, there is minor concerns about traffic and additional curb cuts. Currently, the site has 2 curb cuts, and we're reducing it down to 1 curb cut. And there's also be connectivity with the other parcel that the petitioner owns and operates. That'll help alleviate traffic concerns as well. You can see on the lower left half of the screen just the 1 curb cut and the closing off of the 2nd curb cut as well. And then there's the 2-story building in the corner with sufficient parking, and then the retention pond that will serve both properties in the rear. That concludes the presentation. Here to answer any questions from the public regarding 1635 North French, as well as comments from the board.
Thanks, Ari. Does the proposed zoning allow for drive-through facilities?
I don't know off the top of my head if NB allows for that. Dan, do you know? Other Dan?
I would want that to be a restriction if it is. Okay.
No drive-throughs for food service facilities as opposed to like a bank?
Right.
Okay. It's something I can consider with the petitioner to the extent the zoning allows it.
Okay. Anything from this board beyond that?
Yes, just quickly. So you're closing one of the curb cuts?
Yeah, exactly. So right
Okay.
now, it's an existing home, and you can see how it's got that U-shaped driveway with 2 curb cuts out to North French. We're closing the upper one in this picture.
So is that in line with what the County of Erie and the town recommended and no additional access? The County of Erie said consider using its main access point through 1639, which I'm
Yeah, that would
assuming-
mean no curb cuts to the property itself, only to 1635, and that was their recommendation. That's something that can be ironed out before the planning board and site plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further from this side? No. All right, I'll open it up to members of the public. I'm going to ask you to come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Coffey. I live at 736 North French Road. I'd like to know exactly which residence you're planning on demolishing. There's 2 that I know of. Which one is it? Because as far as I know, they're both owner occupied. Okay, well, I have some other questions. First of all, I frequent that area very much so, and you spoke about a drive-through to get a cup of coffee. There's a Tim Hortons drive-through right on the corner of Campbell and North French, okay? There's a place there to get coffee. I happen to know a lot of people that live in French Landings. It takes them several minutes to be able to make a right or a left turn because of the traffic that goes into the gymnastics. There's a daycare back there. There's also 2 residences in front of that property. Which one are we planning on demolishing? Because as far as I know, they're both owner occupied. So I don't think any more development is needed in that area on North French. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Please come forward. Again, state your name and address for record.
Good evening, my name is Dennis Miranda. I live on Landings Drive, which is only 5 houses from that intersection. Mr. Hirsch Sr. stopped by just about a week or so ago. Very cordial man. I have no issues with them at all. However, he asked me to see if I could poll some of the neighbors in the area, which I tried to do. I actually spoke with 2 others. And we have some common questions about this.
Okay.
Mainly, it's to what purposes might be used, and more importantly, what's going to happen with the traffic. The previous speaker was quite accurate. It's often many more minutes than 3 minutes. There's numerous accidents. There was an accident here just within the last week. 2 cars were badly damaged. It's a real difficult time, especially in the morning and at the rush hour in the evening. Closing one of these curb cuts may or may not be allowed, depending on what the setback for this property is, because I looked at that. The proposal shows a 30-foot setback. Now, the town mentioned at the previous meeting I attended, I won't address you specifically, but I was informed at that meeting that there was plans for either the state or the county to widen that road and to put a turn lane in, okay? Mr. Hirsch himself said to me he was fearful that it might take some of this property away from the right-of-way. That being said, that plan has to be redone unless you're willing to give it an exemption. Now, on a road that busy where cars are going by often at 50 miles an hour or more, because the speed limit there is 45 miles an hour. So you have this 3-way problem with the traffic, and if you're going to put that building that close to the new roadside, the new right-of-way or whatever it might be called, I don't believe that that's going to be in compliance with the town ordinance, because it's going to be too close to that road. Because the plan I have here in front of me, which you saw right there, is showing a 30-foot setback, okay? But that's the road as it is now, and we know that the town is going to change it, because they can't take any road or additional land on the north side of North French, because it's already there. There's a ditch, bang, right there, and then there's property. There's fence there, right there. So if they took a foot, that would be a lot.
Okay. I don't know where the plan for the county to widen it came from. Dan, have we been?
You're talking about the west side of the intersection, associated with the...
Well, they need to widen the road.
You need to talk into the microphone.
Now, Mr. Culpa, I believe you told me that at the meeting I attended 2 or 3 meetings back, okay?
I don't remember ever saying that North French would be widened.
I don't know how you'd add a turn lane there without doing that. It's a 2-lane highway.
So when the Muir Woods development, specifically the subdivision that accesses Campbell Boulevard and North French Road.
My house was built in 1993.
Okay.
If that matters to you, I don't know what. How would you allow a change in, the basic?
The only changes to that intersection that I'm aware of might come from the mitigation required for the development of the subdivision that is part of Muir Woods and accesses Campbell Boulevard and North French Road. To my knowledge, those haven't been advanced just yet. I'm not aware of any other changes to that intersection.
Well, without any of you being able to give me a solid answer as to what's going to happen there, all I know is that both Mr. Hirsch and I heard it at one of these meetings here. Okay, so my suggestion would be that before you make any changes to the zoning, that you determine what's going to actually happen, because if that does happen and the frontage is taken away, that's going to drastically affect the entrance to the property. It's going to affect parking. It's going to affect the setback,
and it may be too much on too little piece of property.
So I'm not familiar with the right-of-way width of North French Road. Ari, I don't know if you guys are or not.
Well, I gotta tell you, there's
so-
another collateral issue, which, there's a piece of property on that corner which is in violation. And it's in violation of the Clearview Triangle, which is a diagram in the actual zoning law. I tried to point this out. I think it was Mr. Freeze, Joe Freeze, is that his name? Unfortunately, I believe he's deceased.
Traffic and safety.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the property owner on the corner has decided to put in, I don't know what you'd call it. He put in a book exchange that's on city or town property on the other side of his lot line. There's numerous statues. He had added an illegal fence which blocks that clear view to the west when you're pulling out of landings, okay? And that contributes to this traffic problem as well. So there's quite a few issues here. I have no real issues with the use of the property except for suppose they wanted to put in a car wash, for example. What would be a neighbor-friendly business that the town, give me an example of what the town might consider to be a neighbor-friendly business? Sure, you'd like to have a car wash. Have you ever seen one in the wintertime? If you think you got a problem there now, take a drive down Niagara Falls Boulevard and Robinson Road and see what's going on down
I
there.
don't think the car wash fits neighborhood business.
No.
It's a motor vehicle use, but, you know, I'm certain that this town board wouldn't want to see a car wash go there.
Well, I'm using that as a
got it.
superfluous example, okay? I would say, could you give me, for example, a typical business that you would accept or one that you might reject because it's not considered to be neighbor-friendly?
So-
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that offhand. The town board's not petitioning for rezoning, right? So the property owners come here saying, hey, I want to do something different, and petition for rezoning.
Yep.
So for us, it's, you know, question of whether or not the parcel could support the intended use by new zoning, and not so much a question about whether or not the, you know, specific uses. I don't know that, right? He hasn't described that to us. And so right now that's a question that lies with the petitioner. So I'm going to give the petitioner a few minutes to answer some of the questions that you've had
Okay.
and that other people have had, and hopefully that'll clarify things. I will say that the town board isn't making a up-down decision tonight. Typically with land use items, we open the public hearing and we don't vote until a second day or a second night of a public hearing, or we'll sometimes close a public hearing and vote later. But, so we're here in the same sort of open conversation that you are at the moment, and hopefully we'll get some answers.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, just to restate it, the people I spoke with in the immediate area, and they're all closer to the intersection, in fact, than I am, we're all very much concerned with the traffic issues, which were brought up by the previous speaker as well. There's also a question of the sight lines that are been abridged there that need to be taken care of as well. So some sort of a signal control, a radar or whatever, sound control or whatever they put in there, that would allow traffic to move more efficiently and safely at especially busy times of the day. It's an absolute nightmare sometimes. I mean, I've said 5-6 cars or more lined up trying to get out during the middle of the rush hour. It's not good. So I thank you for your time. I appreciate your consideration.
Okay, anybody else from the audience? All right, do you want to come up?
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Tori Hirsch, along with my son, other petitioners. Good evening to our residents. I'd like to clear up a couple of points because I just received a letter from Aaron Franco, New York State Department of Transportation, and clarified what the New York State is planning on doing with North French, with Campbell. This has been in the works for probably a couple of years, and it should come to fruition from what I'm told, the fall of 2025. So this will certainly help out traffic concerns. We have widening of North French, adding a right turn lane from North French westbound to Campbell Boulevard northbound. Widen North French to 3 lanes from Campbell Boulevard all the way to French Landings. Lengthen left turn lane from Campbell Boulevard southbound to North French eastbound. Widen Campbell to add a left turn lane at Burgundy Terrace and North Parish Drive. Pave Campbell Boulevard from North French Road to Tonawanda Creek and pave North French Road from Campbell Boulevard to the 990. Widen shoulders 6 feet. And as I say, widen shoulders 6 feet, I've got a meeting tomorrow morning with the New York State DOT, and they are looking to use eminent domain to take 6 to 7 feet of our frontage. Now, by doing so, that just means we push the building back further, since we have the space to do so. So that won't critically affect what's going to happen with our current plans, since they've stated 6 to 7 feet. They're going to replace traffic signals, install sidewalks, and upgrade non-compliant ADA curb ramps. And the project is starting the spring of 2025 and is expected to end the fall of 2025. So that's the latest that I have, and I'll be meeting with them to find out exactly what they're looking to take from us on frontage.
Excuse me for a minute. I'm looking at our planning director. You've not heard any of this, have you?
These are the changes that were talked about as part of the development of Muir Woods. Now, I wasn't sure about the timing of it, but these sound very similar to the improvements that were going to be part of that development and the mitigation thereof. So yeah, we've been aware that there were changes that likely to come. I had no idea what the timing was
I
or the
didn't
scope.
realize it was that included that section. Okay, would it be helpful for us to have a copy of that letter?
Sure.
Could you send the planning department?
Absolutely.
Ari, thanks.
Yeah, we'll post it as a communication, so we'll post it as a communication, so it is on the website. But, okay.
Okay, and then just for additional clarification, we own the house at 1635 North French. There's only one home there, and that would be the home that would be demolished. I do have a tenant there. She is well aware of our intentions and what we're going to do, so there is a complete openness as to what our plans are and our timeline.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to, in response to one of the comments about some of the specifics of the site plan, just where we are in the process of development review in the town. So we went through about a 4-month process to amend the comprehensive plan, Figure 6A, the future land use map, to support this forthcoming request. Now we're before you for the rezoning map amendment, for rezoning the specific property to NB, neighborhood business. That was a strategic decision by Tory and TJ Hirsch. They could have possibly gone for something a little more of an upzoning, but NB has restrictions within it. If it's correct that it permits drive-throughs, then we can commit to that, something that's not what we want to do for the development. It doesn't really fit with the character of the area. It also doesn't fit with the character of what the petitioner is already doing at their other property immediately adjacent. Those are all neighborhood-focused, family-friendly uses, childcare, gymnastics center, dance center, and what we want is retail that complements that. So a drive-through wouldn't necessarily fit in that. It's a coffee shop similar to the development at KC in Transit, where Kaylena Marie's is. Something along those lines is, I think, what they're looking for. If the town board, after closing this public hearing and voting on it at their next meeting or another one, if the town board sees fit to approve the rezoning, we would then go through the comprehensive site plan review process in the town. That's where specifics of the design, more clarity about the use is identified. It also, we would then undergo another round of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA. And for those of the public who might be unfamiliar with that process, It's a comprehensive communication between the planning board in this instance and various agencies within the town and the state. And that gives those expert state agencies a chance to comment on things like traffic. So the DOT will be a part of that. Erie County DPW will be a part of that as well. And they'll be able to lay out their plans for improvements and how it might impact our property. We're also, subsequent to the rezoning, the purpose, our pace is measured and tempered. We want to see what happens with these street improvements because it may result in a taking of our frontage, and then we'd have to pivot on the design. Fortunately, I think the vehicle use area setback is 15 feet in NB, and I think we're compliant as designed, but if certain frontage is taken, we can move the whole site back. And while that may result in a rear yard area variance request from the Zoning Board of Appeals, the rear yard neighbor is the petitioners themselves. So it's something we can work out. There is flexibility in the design there. And your approval of the rezoning isn't a green light to go get a building permit. There's still layers of review after that, and there's layers of comments by the public and expert agencies. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything further from this board or from the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing. Set a decision date for March 25th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is opportunity for public participation. Public expression. I'm going to motion to open public expression at this time.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And we have a couple of lists up here. I'm sure there's another list there. Frank Belliati, you're first, please.
You guys are running so efficient this evening. I almost fell asleep over there. One of the things that bothers me about the budget that we're sitting here with is the lack of information, or too much information that doesn't go anywhere. There's a schedule in there of all of the budget line items. It's, let's say, department number 1, 1,000 is the personnel line, a couple more lines. And then the next line after that is not the subtotal, it's another department 2, and we start over again. But at no point is there a list of departments summarized, or is there a list in there of accounts summarized? So when you're talking about the general fund, one of the things that's true in the general fund is that all of that district stuff has bonds with it, and repayment of the loans. It doesn't have any real people over there. This is where the people are. One of the items came up once before. It was the police and the patrol. And what you had said with some of your announcements was that you hired more police. No comment about why, where, what was the problem? Is there something we should know about? And then somebody from the audience came up and said, but there were a number of people that retired, and you know how it is when somebody retires. They make a lot of money. The new guys don't make much money. There is $1.3 million of additions in the police budget. Since there's no numbers there as to how many people are involved, there's no head count, it seems, almost anywhere. I don't know where that's at. There's all kinds of stories in there. The ice rink, for example, looked like a hiring boom over there. And I don't know why ice rink is a separate piece or somewhere else. We're gonna be in the 25th year, 2025 pretty soon. In fact, Jane, when she came up here, was ready to revise your budget plan to make sure she got enough meetings in so that on November 20th, it isn't, oh gee, it's over. Oh gee, it's over, should have had stages where these things were taken care of. Now, the districts go first, and then the general fund, which is where we're sitting here with 11%. There was 38% in one of the schedules from the general fund with the town and something else. That's an enormous number. I mean, it's not even close to 11% that we were all upset about. we're not a happy group because we also got our reassessments of a number we don't know is higher than our actual value of that property, or it's lower, or it's the same. I know that when I took a look at my situation, I took a look at the sales for the last 2 years, and it was exactly that number. That's not true in some other places. It happens to be a condo. Well, we'll have to settle that somewhere else. It's now March. This budget's been sitting there since November. We haven't had meetings except within the last month or two. And as somebody remarked, I thought from the stage up there, that we don't need you, we make the decisions. And you do. You make the decisions over there. We're dissatisfied. We've been dissatisfied. There's never an empty seat here. And some of this may be assessments, I don't know. There's no head count. There's no way to take a look at that. We have no idea how many more people we're doing. I don't think any of us have a problem with adding police in the safest town we know. But if that's true, there's another piece of that. And did it come from somewhere else? I just think you have some work to do. Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you. Tom Weisbeck.
Well, I'm here to talk about a couple quick things. I just want to remind that you could have opted out of the street lighting for no cost at all. Had it been changed by the utility. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom Weisbeck. I wanted to talk about the street lighting, how you could opt out at no cost of changing those street lights. Remind people. Plus, I wanted to ask you about the highway department. You cut it by 10%. Wonder what happened to it. Did you cut people out of the budget, out of their positions, or did you phase jobs out? Secondly, I wanted to ask you about the Boulevard Mall. Is the town buying into the Boulevard Mall?
I'm going to answer all the questions at the end.
Because I just want to know about it. I mean, it's a huge issue.
I will explain the Boulevard Mall. I keep explaining it. Please
All right,
continue.
because I found some paperwork where we're spending a lot of money. I wanted to make sure if it's true or not. So, that's coming out to, let's see, in 2025. Let's see, let me look at it. Like Boulevard Mall demolition, about, I think it's $10 million. I don't know if that's correct or not.
We'll go through that in a minute.
Okay, so if we're going to bond that, how's it going to affect that, our time of rating, all that stuff? I'm not sure. I'm not good with the bonding, so bear with me on that. So let's see, what else? Now, what about Amherst Central Park? Where's that? Is that the Westwood? Okay. So I saw also more funding throughout, let's see, 2024 was, we're going to spend, let's see, 4.2 and 4 million this year for like a bond, and let's see, that's out of our general accounting. So how about a little explanation on that, please? And how was your vacation last couple weeks ago? We missed you.
I was not on vacation.
Okay. Well, that's all I got to ask. Where were you then, if you weren't on vacation?
Across the board.
I went to Albany with the county executive.
Okay, Gina Gentry, please come forward.
Good evening. Gina Gentry, 65 Bissell Drive. I was really hoping, yeah, can you? You are amazing. I was really hoping that once again, last meeting when I brought up some of the things that there would be nothing else that I would have to bring up. And then it just keeps unraveling. So I hope, Jackie Berger, you're okay that I read a scripture from the Bible, but I want to read something that is just a life goal or a life thing to know. Luke 12, verse 2 through 4 says, "Nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you have said in the dark or behind closed doors shall be heard in the light, and whatever you have whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops." December 4th was the first time I ever attended one of these meetings. And during that meeting, I heard Brian Culpa interrupt a constituent stating he was sick to his stomach over this tax hike, and it affected him too. Then how come 2 weeks later, true, you can have whatever life you want and party it up, but 2 weeks later, you were with Kathy Hochul, December 17th versus the Dallas Cowboys in a Bills suite. Doesn't look like you're too sick to your stomach there, Brian Culpa. So while you decided to shove a massive tax increase down the throats of Amherst taxpayers, you partied it up on taxpayer dimes in a luxury suite with Kathy Hochul. Must be nice, living high on the hog, having a grand old time on the taxpayer's dime again, while suffering families figure out how they're going to afford your sky-high tax hikes. In case you can't notice, this is you right here.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Great camera view, huh? So is there an ethics requirement for you to report getting a free ticket? Because on this paperwork I have here, those that have asterisks next to them were the ones that donated to the charity for the amount of their ticket. There's no asterisk next to your name, nor your wife's name.
Right.
So did the ethics committee that has not met since 2020, maybe you've met, did you report it to that committee? Is there any viable proof? Where'd you get this free money from to go to this? Where'd you get the free ticket from?
Keep going. I
would like an answer in the last however many minutes. I'm not going to wait till the end because I have kids I have to get home to, unfortunately.
I'd like an answer too.
When you're finished, I'll answer.
We're not waiting until the end.
When you're finished, I'll answer.
I'm finished.
Yeah, it's a New York State box. The governor asked me if I could be there. I went there. The next day, she announced $31 million in sewer infrastructure in town of Amherst.
So it was a trade-off.
No, okay, thank you.
No, it's okay. No, but why is it that you had to go and partied up? You didn't pay for the ticket. I'm sorry,
I answered
Mark
the question.
Boyd.
I answered the question. I said I was invited to attend.
So were all these other people.
In the state box.
So were all these other people.
I'm done answering the question.
So once again, I'm going to ask you to resign, and I'm going to ask you every single time that I come and talk until you get sick of him.
Will. So please sit down now.
Must be nice that you can go and party it up and have fun, and you're not going to resign your position. And for you, Angela, you are that independent voice, and I've heard today that you had a conversation where you support and you're blaming the taxpayers. So I don't know why the person's in this room. I don't know why the independent voice during the election season was heard, but now you're staying silent. Please speak up.
Okay. Jane Cox.
No problem. It's taken care of.
Jane Cox, Harlem Road. I think I'll take it down a notch. Don't take my time. I'm going to talk a little bit about the reassessments because what I recently learned about the reassessment process in the town is the following, and that is that people who bought homes in the town from 2017 to the present never had their assessments raised to the purchase price that they paid. They are paying their taxes at a much lower rate than they should be. How many homes were sold in the last 6 years at these inflated prices that they're selling for now? And the town did not tax them at the full amount of what their assessment should be valued. I don't think it's fair to the rest of us. I know we were down to 62% rate, but when you pay a lot of money for a house, you should at least pay the taxes. And as far as my situation goes, my own problem is with my reassessment is there are no comparables to my house. My house is over 100 years old. It is a 2-story house. It is very small square footage. There were very few sales. I am on Harlem Road. We are compared with side streets in Snyder like Audubon and several other ones parallel to that. Nothing like the busy street that I live on. My assessment, which is fairly low, because of the size of my house, has risen 2 1/3 times what it is now. And that's what's going on with me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Okay. Andrea Morganti.
Good evening, Amherst Town Board members. My name is Andrea Morganti from Gettsville, and I'm here once again as a voice for a nonpartisan group representing the residents of Amherst. I would like to have members of the board educate the public on local law 116/2024 transparency. Can you tell me when a public hearing was held and advertised? The notice in the paper indicates Erie County notice of hearing on proposed local law, which will be discussed further by Jerry DeCosmo. Here's my concern. Section 2 defines average property owner as a hypothetical residential property owner. What hypothetical term are you using for commercial property owners? Usage of the term median is incorrect, and it needs to be changed to the word average. Section 3 indicates the citizen's budget overview should include major revenues. We all believe all revenue sources and expenditures need to be listed and transparent to the public, as well as all projected unexpended money from a budgeted that can and will be applied to a fund. If this process is for full transparency and to educate the public, it needs to reflect the correct terminology throughout. In Section 3, Item 3, the verbiage hypothetical has now been removed. Also, in Section 3, you refer to the overview of the proposed budget. What is a proposed budget? New York State law states there is a tentative budget, a preliminary budget, and a final adopted budget. So is the proposed budget for the tentative or the preliminary budget? The local law indicates that the length and presentation of the citizens' budget overview shall not exceed 2 pages. However, you are including visual aids. Will the visual aids be in addition to the 2-page summary? Do visual aids mean charts, maps? Will it include clear and written explanations? And do you have a sample or a template of the summary that you plan on using? Concerns regarding the removal of the CIPs. Why are you removing them from the summary? Is this because you are replacing it with the capital projects fund, like the one you report to New York State as part of your annual financial report? Will you now be reporting all the funds that you actually have, or will you continue to report? Next slide. There is 9 of them. Per your 2022 annual financial report, the town of Amherst had 17 funds, but you only informed the residents of 9. Section 6, the enforcement section, as written would mean the fox is watching the henhouse, and there's no meaningful repercussions for violators. Can you please provide wording that spells out the consequences of non-compliance? If not, then it is just a slap on the wrist for you and a slap in the face to the taxpayers. It's do as I say, not as I do. Last page. Next slide, please. In leaving, I wanted to provide you with the definition of transparency that you can see above. Supervisor Culpa, at the State of the Town address, you indicated the county determined the equalization rate. However, the state does that in coordination with the tax assessor. Thank you.
Okay, Jerry DeCosmo.
Good evening, Town Board. My name is Jerry DeCosmo, and I live on Meyer Road. Councilman Lavin has proposed Local Law 2024-116, Transparency in Budget Process. The law states, and I quote, "The purpose of this law is to enhance transparency, public understanding, and participation in the town's annual budget process. According to Section 5, there will be at least 3 public hearings held specifically on the proposed budget after the budget has been developed. Public hearings accord the public only the right to be heard, and in this case, after the budget has been developed. Public hearings are nothing more than us speaking with no response. How is that transparency? This law lacks the teeth to actually affect change. I suggest instead of public hearings, you hold informational meetings, budget workshops, if you will, starting now to educate the public on the budget process. The budget transparency law is a real opportunity for educating the public and for you, the town board, to truly demonstrate transparency. I suggest perhaps using the existing Amherst Town website to include a dedicated heading titled Amherst Budget 2025, or the People's Budget. It could be interactive, where the town could post a milestone indicator of steps of the budget and where in the process we currently are, glossary of budget terms, schedule of public budget workshops, tax cap changes, the ability to submit questions, post answers. This would be in addition to questions and answers at the budget workshops. I also suggest utilization of major social media platforms, thereby reaching the public where they already are, not expecting them to go where you are. This is transparency. There are tools available such as all-in-one social media, giving you one central place to write, and with a click, it will post to your page on each social media site. Enhanced transparency, public understanding, and participation, all the stated purposes of this law would be addressed. By holding only public hearings, you are controlling the narrative. We need you to meet us halfway, engage with us, educate us. On March 6th, at the State of the Town address, Supervisor Culpa, you took questions. It was refreshing to see actual give and take. We're a team here. Will you be part of the team? Regarding the inadequacy and inconsistency of public notices, when the town is posting legal notices in the Amherst Bee, the headings on these official notices need to be consistent so that the residents can quickly spot them at a glance. There is a lot of discrepancy in the wording, which makes them difficult to find. A simple, bold-faced, uniform heading, Town of Amherst, that would enhance transparency. The principles of open government are transparency, participation, and accountability. I believe the town board should hold off on voting on local law 2024-116 until the people are satisfied. Because if it's not meeting the expectation of transparency, what's the point? Thank you for your attention, and I sincerely hope you give serious consideration to these suggestions.
Chris Strongoski, please.
Good evening, Chris Strongoski, Youngs Road. At the last town board meeting, I showed the report that clearly shows that Westwood is contaminated. And you, Mr. Supervisor Brian Culpa, didn't make any comment after the public expression like you said you would. We have found further evidence of contamination of that property. Actually, our resident expert on Ellicott Creek brought it to my attention, and I should have known this because growing up as a young person and playing Audubon, we knew how bad Ellicott Creek was. Yeah, because it flows through Audubon, you could see it. But that creek has been very contaminated for a long period of time. And Westwood pumped their water, pumped out of Ellicott Creek onto the golf course. That's why there's some very interesting metals on that golf course. Now, you stated that new tests were done and it's on the town website. I haven't been able to find it anywhere. Numerous other residents have not been able to find it on the website. You know, where is it on the website exactly? Where do we go to find this information? Furthermore, I have the minutes from the Amherst Central Park Task Force in which you spoke to them. And this is really important for everyone to listen to this carefully. You stated, and this was a meeting held, I'll say that after I pull this up here, that the town is buying Westwood and what it was buying it for, and it will be remediated fully before purchase can take place or before transfer. So you knew that the property is contaminated because you wouldn't have stated that it has to be remediated before sale or transfer. You know, you're financially devastating this town with your ridiculous tax increases. Now you want to, thank you. Now you want to jeopardize the health and well-being of the community. And you told me a month ago that you wouldn't do that, but you are. Why are you not having that property thoroughly tested before we do anything with it? All right? You get a clean bill on that, you can go ahead and build your musical fair. But you and I both know that you won't get a clean bill because we had a conversation one time and you stated to me that it would take the people that would remediate that property would have to wear special equipment, special suits, special equipment. Special equipment would have to be brought in to remediate, and the remediated soil would have to go to a designated landfill, right? Where you had that conversation. Folks, this is a cover-up of cover-ups. That property's contaminated, and instead of doing the right thing and remediating it and then determining what we can do with it afterwards, that should be the first course of action. Thank you.
Michelle Coffey.
Good evening to the board. I contemplated bringing up a few different questions. My first question is the transparency of what the actual titles of certain individuals on the board. A few meetings back, nobody knew who the comptroller was. Am I right or am I wrong, Brian? You can't answer that? Keep going. Apparently, Mr. Sean Lavin, you are the deputy, what is your title? The deputy commissioner?
Supervisor.
Supervisor, okay. I believe it was on the website as of last week that Jackie Berger had that title. Yes, it was, Jackie. Yes, it was. And for you holding that title and receiving an almost $40,000 stipend, that's quite the title, and you have no input in our town board meetings. I expect it from certain other individuals. Where is the transparency? When are we going to get it right? This is not a game. These are people's lives. Money, futures, families, citizens, people with disabilities that cannot afford the basics in life because of inflation, because of COVID. None of that was our fault. But you were not transparent with us. So raising our taxes and this 62% assessment up to 100%, which sets the ground for county, town, school taxes? Was that like a 40 to 50% increase over just a few years? That also sets the precedence for my homeowners increasing. Triple, double, triple. And you can't answer the questions to any of these residents? I have nothing further.
Judy Ferraro. Judy Ferraro.
Judy Ferraro, 213 Donnelly. Over 2 centuries ago, Sir Walter Scott wrote, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." The meaning is clear regardless of application. It refers to how complicated life becomes when people start lying or acting dishonestly. It begins a structure of complications that eventually become trapped in dishonesty in a tangled mess. What is playing out before our eyes in our lives, is an unspeakable, tangled, hot mess. This board behind closed doors has been contriving to transform a suburb into a city of Culpa's vision that we cannot afford and no one wants, especially at a time of record high inflation in every category and an uncertain future for all. There is no running from it. We are living the consequences of irrational, egocentric, short-sighted decisions. We see what we see, not what you're spinning and your hired surrogates peddle. He who pays the piper calls the tune. That is the game being played against the people, as backward as it is, because we pay for all of you, and you're punishing stupid ideas. We the people should be in the room at the head of every table, not the meal. Predictably, now in a panic, you need to extort more of people's hard-earned dollars to pay for your obscene, unsustainable spending. Undeterred and uncaring of the extra burden you are placing on the backs of ordinary people. After all, you are not affected so grievously because you always have the beleaguered taxpayers to squeeze. Martin Luther King once said, "Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Looks like we have both. And it is indeed dangerous. Who among you will demand a forensic audit and an investigation into what looks like shady dealings? Who will put forth the novel notion of referendums on million-dollar pet projects? The whole pet project venture must be put on pause. Cost analyses are imperative and need to be done with all data shown to the public without ambiguity. Who would have thought that our beautiful Amherst would become a travesty and a tragedy because of misguided leadership? Thank you.
Joe Wojtowicz.
Joe Wojtowicz, 35B Cyrus. Where to begin? I've been finding so many things wrong concerning this town that I've taken to numbering them to keep track of the list. Issue number 1, the town reassessment. Central to this project is collection of data, which is now being handled by Gar Associates, an appraisal company located 2 blocks from our town hall. They were allocated $500,000 for this project. And if individual property owners were to take their assessment to court, called in Article 7, Gar Associates would charge the town up to $15,000 to prepare the final court papers. Gar must make a nice profit on this because the president of the company owns an $880,000 house in Williamsville. On to data access. Since the assessment, the assessor's office has shut down their property data function, and instead we are to use GAR's webpage for property data. But can we get access to all the home property information? No, I was told. Why were they hiding this? They responded, and I quote, "Nothing is hidden. The same procedure that has historically been followed. The posting of the tentative roll after May 1st will continue to be followed. So much for transparency when the cutoff date for the internal appeals is March 31st. Restricting information cuts off the public from seeing the full picture. History does not equate to honesty. This is a gross misuse of the public trust. Issue number 2. I noticed a seemingly insignificant bond issue back on February 26th to re-roof 6 park pavilions for a total of $199,000. I did some research on Google Maps and measured the shelters. I then called the lead architect on the project, and she explained to me that they used metal roofing, quote, because Amherst uses the highest quality materials, end quote. I also saw that the contractor had bid $150,000 for the project, yet the town allocation of $199,000. Why? She didn't know. She also said that Amherst is tied by state law to a prevailing wage schedule. This means that the roofers working on the contract here are to be paid $32 an hour and an extra $28 an hour for fringe benefits. That's almost $60 an hour to re-roof an open-air pavilion the size of a garage. But that still doesn't add up. A crew of 3 men would be able to reshingle a park pavilion in about 4 hours. Yet we're going to pay out $20,000? Can someone answer this question? Where is the money going? These are the details that lead to answers on why our taxes are soaring. Thank you.
Matt Plunkett.
Pardon me?
You're not, well, you're not next on the list.
Oh, I'm
You okay with that?
Well,
All right,
I'm
go ahead,
sitting down.
Tom.
No, I'll let him go.
No, no.
Matt Plunkett, North Hill Drive. I know there's going to be a lot of comments about the assessment letters that went out. I got a call from a friend who's about 80 years old the other day about their letter. The assessment on their property doubled, and I have great respect for Gar Associates, but they had the construction date of the house is 1957. My friend has a photo of the prior owner of the house standing in front of it in 1944. And they're very concerned about what that's going to do to their taxes. I got a call from another friend who told me that the estimate after the reassessment of their taxes next year is a $700 tax increase based on last year's tax figures. And I went back and I took a look. Why do we have to go through another assessment? And I took a look at some of the assessment decision. One assessment decision, at least, that's been made, was made by this town a couple of years back, involving Boulevard Mall. I guess Douglas Development challenged the town's assessment in court. And it was all set to go to court. As a matter of fact, I think the assessor at the time said something to the effect in the Buffalo News. The Buffalo News ran a story headline that said, Amherst assessor to Jamal, see you in court. And then about 2 weeks later, sometime in the middle of June of 2020, there was another article in the Buffalo News that quoted the supervisor as saying that he and Mr. Jamal were going to sit down and set the assessment for Boulevard Mall. Now, leaving aside the whole issue of whether the supervisor has any authority under law to set assessments, since that's given specifically to the town assessor, the upshot of that was about a 68% reduction in the assessment of Boulevard Mall. And just to take a look at what that did last year to the other taxpayers of this town, if you take a look at the most recent town-county tax bill we paid, that led to a savings for Boulevard Mall of on the order of $290,000, $288,000, something like that. That's a one-year effect. This has been going on now there for 4 years. As far as the school tax goes, given the fact that Boulevard Mall, I guess, is in the Sweet Home School District, and they have homestead taxing in the Sweet Home School District, Boulevard Mall saved something on the order of $660,000 in school tax last year. That's tax that's spread over other residents in the town of Amherst and residents in the town of Tonawanda, because the Sweet Home School District stretches over into Tonawanda. So people in Tonawanda are having their taxes boosted by a supervisor who they have no control over, which is really an interesting phenomenon, I think. And, you know, I mean, that's just one example for one property. And then on top of that, given the fact that the town had reduced the assessment for Boulevard Mall on the order of 68%, they also had to reduce the assessment on J.C. Penney and the Benderson property in Boulevard Mall by an equal amount. So you can add on those figures as well to the amount of taxes that were spread over onto the homeowners and other property owners in the town. So, you know, and again, I mean, that's just one example. Northtown Plaza has to be even probably worse given the situation over there right now. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons we're looking at an assessment. And, you know, when they tell you, you know, well, 1/3 of the tax, for one thing, they say, well, assessment doesn't increase your taxes. And then they say, oh, 1/3 of your people's taxes will go up. Well, if assessment doesn't affect your taxes, why are they going up? If assessment doesn't affect your taxes, why do it at all? So, you know, yeah, and that's what we're looking at. The one thing I will say, and I've said this before, is, you know, don't be, you know, distracted by the assessment. You know, if you feel you need to challenge your assessment, do it. But again, keep in mind, as always, what finally determines the tax in this town is how much these guys spend. They spend way too much. Mr. Zuccalla, I want to say one thing. I know people commented on the fact your chair was empty last time we had a meeting and so on and so forth. Don't feel badly, because you're here tonight and it's just as empty.
Scott Hepner. Scott Hepner. Julia Valenti.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. Sorry. My name is Julie Van Lente, 30-year resident at Parkwood Drive in Snyder. I, like many here today, started coming to the board meetings after the shock announcement of the 11.42 tax increase in November. My quest is to understand who does what in this town and how we got to this, where we are today. At the organizational meeting January 2nd, the opening resolutions were gaveling in reappointments and new appointments to committees and boards. No names of members were listed, and also were not listed in the minutes, but the movers and seconders and vote casts were. I asked about why. I was told it was an HR thing after the meeting that night, and was told, I also mentioned it would go a long way for transparency to just list who does what. So every organization I've belonged to or worked for in the last 60 years, literally, has a thank you to the outgoing people and a welcome to the ingoing people listed in the beginning of the minutes for organizational meetings. It would be a good transparency issue for you, for all of us. And so at that point, I was told, oh, they're all on the town website. You can go look there. So I did. It was a cumbersome involvement, and I looked on everything. I found 37 boards and committees, and as of today, at least 20 of them have no secretaries, including the Board of Ethics, Amherst Central Park Board, right now the Amherst IDA, and Board of Assessment, and they don't have any meetings planned. Also, the last board meeting, I asked who reported to Mr. McMahon, who in the employee directory is listed as Chief of Staff. To make it more confusing, in the current Town of Amherst wages and benefits estimate for 2024, there are 2 assistants to town supervisors and 1 personnel director, no chief of staff. Mr. Culpa, of course, is the town supervisor, and I was curious if this is a full-time job. I was just looking on LinkedIn, and because you have a chief of staff that we don't know who reports to him, and then on LinkedIn, you have 4 positions listed, and one of them is a brand-new company that was announced in January. So given my lack of true understanding, other than it seems to be a big job to start with time and effort to start a new company, I'm wondering how you have time to be the town supervisor. The other 2, the assistant supervisor positions, since we don't know what coincides with what, are both listed with, the assistant supervisor positions are listed at wages and benefits of over $133,000 each. And there's also a personnel director. Now, I understand what those things are, but nothing in the board, in the list of things. I printed them out. I'm still trying to find out the answers to my questions, and trying to find out who does what and why we have such a huge budget for, blamed on the police for increases in salaries, and just wondering about that. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Harry Conamos. I live at 138 California Drive. What's that? Okay, sorry. Try that again. Good evening, everyone. My name is Harry Conamos. I live at 138 California Drive, right here in the village. We all got our assessments and reassessments, and we have a private company, Gar Associates, doing it. One of the things that is missing in this transparency that we need in order to fight this is what one of the residents said. We need the whole tentative assessment bill so we can put it together and file for March 31st. It's not on the website. Also, in regards to the assessor and assessor's office, what inputs are they using? What outputs do they get? Where is the software? Where is the source code? Where is the algorithms and formulas being used for this? As transparency, I and the other public members should ought to be able to review them and go through them. We do not have them. I talked to Gar Associates on Tuesday. Somebody was supposed to get back to me. They haven't. Today's Monday. They still haven't gotten back to me from last Tuesday with that information. Freedom of Information Act. And if you are hiring a private company, you ought to have all that stuff right here on the website so everybody can review and see what formulas are being used by the assessor's office. Just listing a price tag out of the blue, well, I can say, your property's worth $1 million, every one of you. So you can pay the full bill. Now, in terms of past historical references, I have done research, and it is on file from all the other tax reassessments that have gone over the years. What the town does and the assessor does is they do a DC shift with the statistical data. And with that DC shift of the statistical data, they take the slope and reduce it. The slope is reduced around that DC offset. Those above the DC offset actually get a lower tax assessment for their $400, $500, $600, $700, $800,000 homes. All of us who are below that value have our taxes artificially, falsely raised. If you were to put statistics together and show the standard deviations, the mean, the mode, and all the other stuff, you will see otherwise. I've done that multiple times, and they are on file. I've submitted them, and so forth. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so that covers the software, the formulas, and so forth. The other thing that has got me upset is like everybody else, which is the tax assessment. And the tax assessment here, There is two tax caps, a property tax cap, which is at 0.2%, also a New York State constitutional limit of, for 5 years, you can't exceed the 0.2%. Your 11.4% is already exceeded it in 1 year. 5 times 2 is 10. 11.4 violates the Constitution of New York. You should rescind this immediately, the raise and all the rest. You should rescind the assessment immediately. And by the way, everybody here should be contacting Thomas D. Napoli, New York State Comptroller, and file charges against every one of you.
Allison Segraves.
Allison Segraves, Amherst Road. Okay, so again, like many, I only started coming to these meetings in December because I was concerned that an 11.4% increase suggested we had governance problems. So again, I'm focused on governance, ethics, and financial transparency. So I understand you'll be voting on the financial transparency law tonight. I just wanted all of the citizens here and listening at home to understand what the law penalty for non-compliance is. This is stated in the law itself. This is the penalty for non-compliance, and I'm going to read it twice. Non-compliance with this law shall be addressed by the town board with potential measures, including a directive to comply. Okay, I'm reading it again because I had to read it twice. Okay. Non-compliance with this law shall be addressed by the town board with potential measures, including a directive to comply. Okay, so what I'm deducing from this is that if they don't comply with the law as written, a potential measure would be to tell themselves, maybe we need to comply with this law. But it doesn't even say they have to. And I just want to echo Jerry DeCosmo's recommendations. Those are the minimum of what any fiscally responsible person would require if you work at a company, a nonprofit, or any organization. That's the level of detail that should be communicated to the people that are paying the bills. So I know you're going to vote on this tonight. I just want people to be aware that the standard that you're holding yourselves to is a potential measure, including a directive to comply. We are lectured every meeting about how we need to behave, and this is the standards that you hold yourselves to. And I would also suggest that after you read the rules of engagement for the taxpayers, that you also read the rules that are required of this board, and make sure that you follow your own rules.
Jerry O'Connor.
Can you hear me? I'm Jerry O'Connor, 27 Chateau Terrace South. I don't have anything controversial to talk about tonight. I do want to explain my understanding of ownership, though. Ownership is when you have the exclusive use and right to control a piece of property. And as far as I know, Music Fair now owns the theater that's going to be built at the cost of $10 million, of which they're supplying 1/3. So 2/3 of that cost is going to be borne by people in this room and the rest of the taxpayers in the town of Amherst. Yet you have gifted that to Damon College and Music Fair because they have a 30-year lease where they get the exclusive use of that theater. I think that's transferring ownership at the expense of the taxpayers. Now, because I'm on Chateau Terrace South, we were inundated with construction debris and dust over the last week. It's been in all the papers. I'm sure you all know about it. Mrs. Berger was actually there on site and explained why Benderson shouldn't be held responsible. Benderson owns and hired the contractor that did the demolition. And that demolition not only contaminated Bornhava School, but also the rest of the neighborhood. As far as I know, when wind carries dust and other debris, it doesn't stop magically at the end of one property. I want to know why somebody from the town of Amherst, whether it's code enforcement or something else, isn't there every day to make sure that they follow the rules that any responsible contractor would follow when it comes to demolishing a building. The other thing I notice, and again, this goes back to ownership, Benderson may own that piece of property, but they don't own the public sidewalk. And right now, that sidewalk is pushed out, so you're either walking in the street or on the other side of the street. And in order to get from my street to Fruhoff, we have to walk up, cross Main Street, walk all the way down to Harlem Road, cross there, and back to Fruhoff, because our public sidewalks that we pay for and Benderson is supposed to maintain are closed to pedestrian traffic. Thank you.
Good evening, Ray Herman, Oak Grove Drive. I would like to speak briefly regarding, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about this from many other speakers, regarding the tax rate. But what I would like to speak to is going forward. I am very concerned about what will happen next year. What is our tax bill going to look like? It is my position that we should look at reducing that levy by 11%. It was raised so that it's in line with surrounding towns that have not spent so much. Now, a big cost involved is obviously personnel. I think everything should be looked at. Eliminating positions by attrition, a hiring freeze, no raises. But I think we also have to look at positions that were added by this board that did not exist before, that are held by politically connected people. We should look at those positions and ask ourselves, do we really need these positions? One of those positions was actually named by a previous speaker. I'm not going to name names about who these people would be, but these positions do exist. I realize that cutting positions is not easy, and I also realize that 3 people on the board actually hold patronage positions by the county, so maybe this is a particularly hard decision, but you all said you were going to represent the people. The people do not want this level of spending, so we need to eliminate some positions. So I would just ask you, do you represent the people that are politically connected, or do you represent the people in this room? So I would just suggest that the sooner cuts happen, the less painful they will be. If you need to eliminate a position, it's better to do it. Maybe you should do it tonight. But it's we have to look. We have to look forward and say that what happened in this last budget was unacceptable, and we have to do better. And that's my sole request to this board. Take a hard look at every single position and say, do we really need these positions? Thank you.
Cynthia Aiken.
I'm Cynthia Aiken. I'm at 347 Lamont. And I have received, like everybody else here, the tax assessment. It was pretty much doubled with an invitation to do an informal grievance online, which I did. Well, it took its time and got a little lost in the shuffle. When I came back to the page, it said my grievance was submitted or something to that effect. Please call this number, which I did. Did anybody else have that experience? Did anybody have that experience of a phone number to call after you submitted your informal grievance online? Give it a try, see what happens. What I would like to know is, once I have submitted that thing my problem with that one is that I didn't get any kind of, it just said I submitted, there was no kind of receipt, no ticket number, no saying this is, your property number is your ticket or anything like that. So I don't know, the computer took my form and did God knows what with it. What I would like to know is, now that I have submitted this, what is the process?
I answer all the questions at the end. Once you submit the grievance, they contact you regarding the grievance. So,
Is it going to happen by March 31st?
No. No, so the submission deadline is March 31st. There's this grievance process, and then there's a secondary process after that.
Okay. Is everything going to be done by the official grievance day?
Dennis Hoban.
Pardon me? Okay.
I found it on my chair, Brian.
Oh, thanks, Dennis.
Do you want it? Here.
Sure.
It says worst supervisor ever, I think. Picture of you on there, Brian. Dennis Hoban, 216 California Drive. Been to about 7 or 8 meetings so far. I just want to say the first meeting, I think Brian told me that I was acting like a bully. I should sit down. I don't know. Didn't want to sit down, but kept talking, I guess. I think it was a reaction to the 11.4 increase. That's why I came, and I was pretty angry. And but I think I kept my cool pretty good. Another meeting we had, Brian said that in the newspaper that we were all racist. Well, he did. It's the truth. And then there was another meeting where another board member, Mike here, said that we were irrelevant a couple of times. I don't know if you remember that, but he did, said you were irrelevant. One night, Sean Lavin, after all the hocus pocus and shenanigans, said we need more transparency, actually made some kind of a resolution to have more transparency. I thought that was pretty funny. And then at the last meeting, well, it was pretty comical. At the last meeting, Shelley Schratz was up here, and I don't know if she's here tonight. I didn't see her, but she's back there somewhere. Hi, Shelley. She mentioned something about God or something about Jesus, and I looked up the Declaration of Independence, and I was reading that earlier before I came to the meeting, and it mentions God. It mentions that the rights actually in the Constitution They're not given to you by the government, okay? I want people to understand that. You have the right to come here peacefully, assemble, and bring your grievances before the government, okay? They don't want you to do that, but we have that right. And the government doesn't give you that right. You're given that right by God, okay? And if Jackie Berger doesn't like that, that's too bad, all right? Okay? It doesn't, it's too bad, all right? So I want to, hold on. I want to say one more thing. A lot of people don't know this, but Brian, when COVID hit, Brian canceled the meetings, just like most of the towns, okay? Well, what happened was, the village of Williamsville and other towns, Clarence, Cheektowaga, Tonawanda, you name it, they're all opened up and you could have open meetings. Well, Brian decided he was going to still have closed meetings, okay? And it was during COVID. I don't think a lot of people understand this. It was during COVID and it was after COVID when you couldn't come to a meeting like this. That's when all the shenanigans started, okay? So I met Brian in the parking lot out here one day, and I said, Brian, you are not following the Constitution of the United States of America. First Amendment, you have to allow people to come to the meeting, assemble, and peacefully bring their grievances to the government. And he said, well, that's too bad. I'm just not, you're not allowed to. Well, I'm afraid of COVID. I got a couple people on my board. And I said, oh, you know, so let me finish by saying, a bunch of friends of mine, I told a bunch of friends of mine that I said, it's ridiculous. And I know that, you know, he's doing bad things and you can't go to a meeting. You could Zoom, you know, but it's not the same. It's not the same as being here, and you know that. All right? So we went to his house one night, me and about 9 friends of mine. Went to actually his house on Milton. And we protested. Okay? And his wife came out, and I said, listen, tell Brian to follow the Constitution of the United States.
All in favor?
Okay?
Dennis, finish. You're done. Thank you. There was a motion. You're out of order.
And what are her responses?
There's a motion, and you're out of order.
What Brian's wife's response was when I told her to tell Brian...
Dennis! You're out. I'm going to motion for a 5-minute recess. Second.
All right.
For the love of God.
We closed public expression. We'll open it for the second round. Tom's okay.
Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda for the evening. I'm going to ask our town clerk to please read the consent agenda.
Supervisor Copa, 1-2. Deputy Supervisor Lavin, 1-2. Councilmember Zucala, 1-2. Councilmember Marinucci, 1. Town Attorney, 2. 3 was withdrawn, 4. Town Clerk, 1. Building Maintenance, 1, 2. Comptroller, 1, 2. Contract Compliance, 1, 2. Economic Development, 1, 2. Highway, 1, 2. Human Resources, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 was withdrawn, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Information Technology, 1, 2. Planning, 1, 2. Police, 1. Sewer Plant, 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Youth and Recreations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Under Communications, 1 refer to attorney, 2 refer to attorney, 3 refer to attorney, 4 refer to attorney, 5 refer to attorney, and 6 refer to attorney. Thank you.
I'm going to motion the consent agenda as it appeared and was read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 116 is the local law to enhance transparency and participation in town of Amherst budget process. I'm going to motion the resolution as it appeared.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on our agenda is Resolution 218. It's a townwide centralized security bond resolution in the amount of $50,000. I'm going to first motion to adopt the seeker findings associated with the project.
Second.
All in favor?
Do you have to roll call?
Not on seeker. Next, I'm going to motion the original resolution, and I'll ask I'll motion the resolution,
Second.
and I'll ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Copa.
Yes.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin.
Yes.
Councilmember Berger.
Yes.
Councilmember Zucala.
Yes.
And Councilmember Marinucci.
The next item on our agenda is the second round of public expression. For opportunities, the second round of public expression is next on our agenda. It is an opportunity for comments in addition to comments that have been made prior. I'm going to motion to open the second round of public expression at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I told Tom he would be first.
Tom, please come forward.
No, Tom. Tom.
Jane Cox, Harlem Road. Because of the volume of people speaking in the room, we could not hear what just happened. Could you explain, did you close the first public expression, and therefore
I did.
was there discussion on the transparency law, or did you just vote to approve it, or something else? We don't know.
voted to adopt the transparency law, yes.
Okay, with no comment. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. All right, shush. Kathy Aquilina, Maple Road. At the last meeting, the lease for musical fair was approved. Kramer, I don't know if that's his name, after the meeting, went to the front to probably thank the board for approving spending 6.6 plus million on musical fair. You think he would have thanked the residents during the second public expression for paying for this. Talk about entitlement.
Good evening, Mayor Bryan, village board town board members. Excuse me, I was just over there. There's 3 agenda items that I'd like to tie in together. One is number 18, the Glen Park Joint Board. Number 2 is the town revised meeting dates. And number 3 is the Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. I want you to know that as far as the bicentennial plan update that the village is going through, that this is a demonstration project for the Glen Park Joint Board. The agreement, the 1977 agreement for the ownership, financing, improvement, and maintenance of Glen Park. Now, what's interesting is that the plan for the Amherst Central Park Greenway okay, that there are two aspects of the resolution. Number one has to do with the Niagara River watershed greenway that goes through 2050, and the other has to do with the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor, the 2025 bicentennial. That it's important that these things be put together as far as the comprehensive plan for the village. And as far as your revised meeting dates, the village and the town, they would never meet at the same time. They used to be in the same building, and they'd never meet at the same time on the same date like they do now. And what that is a consideration, and the second thing has to do with the consideration of a quarterly joint board meeting with Village of Williamsville and the town of Amherst on a quarterly basis. As far as the issues having to do with Amherst Central Park Greenway, as far as the $450 million that were allocated to Erie and Niagara County for the Greenway. Simonelli took out the Robert Moses Parkway. But as far as, the town of Amherst, the town board is in the Village of Williamsville, and the village is in the town, and there needs to be some more education. Thank you. And it has to do with the infrastructure maintenance, the management and maintenance of the water lines, the sewer lines, and the highway storm sewers. They're all interconnected. Thank you.
Jerry DeCosmo, Meyer Road. I just have to clarify something from my own head. You guys just voted to pass the transparency law as it stood without even considering any of the suggestions that were presented to you. Am I correct in that?
Yes,
So-
town board voted in favor.
So I just want you to know that we will be watching, regardless of whether you choose to educate us or not. We will educate ourselves, and we will be taking.
Joe Wojtowicz, 35 Bucyrus. Open Government Advisory Board. Mr. Town Attorney, you read the laws to us at the start of every meeting on the rules of order. Can you please read the rules, the town law for the Open Government Advisory Board to the town board? They are required by town law to keep it fully populated. Each board member gets 2 appointees. They're not nominees, so nobody gets a vote on them. If a board member sees somebody they want on the board, they get the right by law to put that person on the board. We need this board populated. Town law also requires them to meet at least every 2 months. The board has not met since July 22. It's almost 2 years. You're violating your own law. If you talk about everybody else enforcing laws, you need to enforce your law and get moving and find people to put on that board and not keep coming up with excuses we can't find anybody. You need somebody on there, I will volunteer my service, and they say they can't find anybody, I'm willing to go anytime I get appointed. Thank you.
Andrea Morganti, Guestville, New York. Supervisor Culpa, my mother told me that I see the world through rose-colored glasses. Well, tonight, you destroyed that for me. I did a lot of work on that resolution for the benefit of the town. I didn't do it for my benefit. I wanted to make sure that our resolutions are in compliance. But you just went ahead and voted on it anyway. And I am so heartbroken right now, I can't even begin to tell you. Thank you.
Well, that's politics for you.
Supposed to sign this? Hi, Shelley Schratz, Kensington Avenue, Amherst. I would first like to personally thank our residents, and here's why. They have done, listen, please, this is to you. No, I know, okay, all right, so can you hear me out there? Because this is to the residents, all right? Thank you for taking the time to educate yourself about how important the town is, the things that the town, other residents that haven't looked yet are facing now or may be facing. Thank you for just not giving up. And please don't give up, because this isn't about just us. It's our homes, it's our families, it's our kids, it's our neighborhoods, all right? And I'm gonna make a statement, and I mean it respectfully. When you did, Brian, the Chamber of Commerce, you know, and you did your State of the Town, you were so professional. You always are. It's what you do for a living. I get it, all right? And really, it was impressive. But the first thing you did was you thanked all of them. You thanked the chamber. You thanked the business people. You thanked the people in the community that were at that meal. Those are hand-picked people that pay to go to visit, hand-picked in a respectful way. They're part of the chamber. It's not a bad thing. You don't have to feel bad about that. But you thanked them. And you said Amherst wouldn't be where it is today without people like them. You did it for the residents, and you didn't thank them. You thanked them at the end for coming. I don't think any of you have thanked them. Their parents, they're sick, they're not getting paid. They're educating you on what your constituents have been asking for. And whether you want to pay attention, listen, change your mind, or do something, that's strictly up to you. But they put you here to be their voice. No one speaks to them. No one answers their questions till the end. And it's usually Brian. And I'm sorry, it shouldn't be just Brian. Brian has enough to do. I mean that sincerely. I don't discuss with these people what I'm going to come and talk about. I wasn't even going to come tonight. I got my own family problems. But I'm here because I care. And damn it, you people don't care for them. I don't know who you're caring for, but it's wrong. And Sean, you are the deputy. And you as a deputy supervisor, you can bring a motion forward and say, let's speak on it, second it, and get people to talk about it. And you're going to vote the way you're going to vote. But take it off what the department heads are doing. They're doing their jobs, and they're getting hollered at because they don't know. Educate the people with what you're feeling and where you're coming from, so we don't have to have this.
That's hard to follow. Judy Ferraro, Donnelly Boulevard. I'd like to know, in the interest of transparency, what is the town getting to lease the property on Westwood for parking cars? And I'm the last one, so I guess you can answer now.
I will. Are you finished?
Yeah.
Great. The town, do you know the lease amount offhand? So it's about $3,500 a month. And so I'm going to go back through all of these in a minute. Is everybody else finished? Go ahead, Chris, one last time.
Chris Strongoski, Youngs Road. Just for point of reference on decorum at meetings, I think everybody should go online and look up New York Times versus Sullivan. The Supreme Court made a ruling, and I think you all ought to read it. We have the right to come in here and criticize and be critical of you. That's Supreme Court. You don't have to like me, I don't have to like you, but you have to listen to us. Now, the only restraint would be the 3-minute time frame, and I've always tried to stay within the 3 minutes. It used to be 5 minutes, but then when people like this were showing up, they got tired of staying here until 1 o'clock at night and made it 3 minutes. You're absolutely right. Now my favorite subject. Last time I was critical of Councilmember Berger and her Recreation Commission not being transparent. Well, she said it was on the website, and I went home, and sure enough, it was. The agenda for the next day was on there. And when I clicked the agenda button, it showed approved November 2023 minutes. They hadn't met. They didn't meet. They didn't meet in December. They didn't meet in January. The meeting tomorrow. It's not on the town website. There's no agenda. There's no agenda packet. There's no minutes or minute packet. Have no idea what's been going on. It is under Trackus a Zoom meeting. So what is so difficult? I mean, when I was on the commission multiple times, we always had the agenda. We always had the agenda packet, the minutes, and the minute packet out there. And this has been going on for years. You know, I know you want to hide a lot of things with Royal Parkway and Westwood, but you know, you have an obligation under the open meeting laws, state meeting laws, to put that information on the website. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Fred Lenz. I live at 64 East Chateau Terrace. I want to comment on the sound system here. I came in September during the Chateau Terrace Benderson debacle, and I brought it to your attention. Now tonight, I actually play in the Amherst Symphony. I play a tuba, and I was riding home from the rehearsal and listening to the YouTube feed, and it's excellent. It comes through loud and clear. My suggestion would be to perhaps maybe pump the YouTube feed through some better speakers. These things are not doing it. I'm hearing impaired. I'm sitting in the third or fourth row, and I really can't understand people. So, you know, it depends on what you like. I mean, if people are talking here, the whole room should be able to understand what they're saying. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the garage at 22 Chateau. It's a pile of rubble. I don't know if anybody tonight spoke to that, but you really should. You should do something. Have Benderson rebuild the garage. That property was saved as part of the historical context of Amherst and Snyder, and the pile is just laying there. It's an eyesore, and more importantly, for anybody that lives in that area, every time we drive by it, it's a deep felt disappointment that happened. So I'm just hoping, even though some people are looking at me here, I'm just hoping that I see a garage go up before the end of the construction season. Thank you very much for your consideration, and I'm looking forward to a better sound system.
Tom Weisbeck on 48 Drawbridge. Just want to follow up on another earlier issue a couple weeks ago about the house on Chateau Terrace. Did you get the power on? I told you about the meter was gone. But
The power is not off to the building.
no, the power's still on there, but the meter's gone. When the meter's gone, there's no power into the house. The power's on the house, but not with the meter's gone. You have no electricity going in the house. Got it.
No access. So Sam Smith, Fruhoff Avenue. So I want to start a little bit from the beginning about what we learned about our project in the Fruhoff Chateau, Main Street, and Snyder area, and some things that the town could work on to improve. So when rezoning a parcel, we ask that you please check with the assessor's office and the reconnaissance reports, then with the HPC to make sure that there's no conflict of rezoning property that is within the town's documentation of it being blue rated. This would avoid conflicts and preserve historic structures within the town and not have departments at odds. Leaving the HPC out of decisions minimizes the function of the town to do its job properly. So then I want to talk about the demo that started on February 14th in 2024 of the commercial buildings on Main Street in Snyder. There was no fence around the project and no water was being sprayed. The demo site was open, exposed, and not covered. On February 15th, a chain link fence was then put up on the side streets. Still no water was sprayed on the demo. Dust and debris floated in the air. March 1st was the first day water was sprayed on the demolition site. Additionally, there was a dump truck that arrived on site and proceeded to dump a truckload of white garbage bags into the debris pile. Again, that was not covered or taken away. And I have photos of that. On March 4th, the DEC, the Department of Health, and Department of Labor showed up to the address because of blown debris of chunks of painted wood, insulation, etc., that came through the neighborhood, a daycare center, and through the parking lots of the neighboring commercial properties to the library. Samples were taken and tested. Rather than halt demo until results were received and proper fencing was erected, demo continued while mesh was put around the existing fence and samples were still out for testing. We as a community, Bornhava, a preschool for children with special needs, needed to advocate for ourselves within the last week. The town was not watching and following through on proper demolition management. They did not stop demo until proper testing and results were received. We still have not received a written report of those results. The preschool has not been able to function outside of their facility, and a town board member who visited the site told them to take the special needs children to the community center rather than address the demolition situation, which made the center's grounds unusable. The community members needed to clean up their own yards. This is a gross failure of the town to fulfill its responsibilities. This is a real-time mistrust and poor management that can be linked to concerns throughout Amherst regarding development and many people's concerns on projects like the Gleason Nursery and the PUD at Central Park. We as a community are told to speak at these meetings and things will be heard on a case-by-case basis, yet there appears to be a disconnect, disregard, and several times the town saying we will call the developer. The town misses the point of smart development that fits a community, creating a wedge, and also putting out rhetoric of people being anti-development. This is insulting and out of touch with the community you serve. Rather than seeing the problems, you look to rectify inconsistencies and issues they are ignoring and buried. You are asking for blind trust, yet there is no answers. There's still no paper documentation of testing results, and demolition continues. It is a general disregard for the community. Further, one business cannot operate in their daily functions while another who neglected the property continues operations. As community members, we are told to not go outside, and if we do go outside, as long as you're downwind. And that's what the Department of Health, the DEC, and Department of Labor have told us. And it feels like it comes down to money. If we don't have big money, you're not a player. Yet if incompetence, neglect, or cronyism is mentioned, it's offensive. What we want is to fix the problems that are in the town.
Hi, Dave Howard, 194 Rycroft Boulevard. I was on the list, but I don't think I heard my name. So anyways, just a couple things on the LED lights. It'd be nice to know your thought process somewhere that we could see it and how you selected to do it on your own, instead of going through either New York Power Authority or National Grid Project. Every other city, it seems like, has done it that way except for us. Albany, Utica, Syracuse, Rochester all went through NYPA. Orchard Park through New York State Electric and Gas. Why did we determine to go on our own and do a bond? It just doesn't make any sense when all these other cities didn't do it. It'd just be nice to be able to see that thought process somewhere, and it's impossible to find. As to the Central Park, again, we're putting it in the wrong place, but I think nobody's going to listen to that anyways. Looking at the musical fair project, $10 million. I mean, I don't know if anybody's looked and seen what the building looks like. It's gorgeous, okay? You could build that. You could build a theater for probably less than maybe 7, 8 million and give them anything they're going to get in that building. It just won't look like a whale. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but the part of the theater that makes it is what's in the building, not what's on the outside. You go and look at New York City on Broadway, they're all block buildings. They have a nice a moniker, a marquee on the outside, but inside is what counts. Inside is what's beautiful in those buildings. We don't need a showplace for the outside. We need to save some money, and we need to do it efficiently. Thank you.
Good evening. Keith Bailey, Hopkins Road. I'm going to ask for some transparency. I received my reassessment of my home. My wife and I bought in August of 2020. My reassessment is 25% higher than my purchase price. Now, there's a way that we can go about to challenge that. However, in order to challenge something, you've got to get an understanding of how that number was come about. And there's no transparency of how that number came to be. How was this reassessment established? How was my home reestablished in this assessment? To my knowledge, no one came and looked over my home. No one knocked on my door and asked me to come in so they could look at any improvements inside my home or outside my home. I did notice that the satellite view of my house has been updated, but the front view that's shown from the street hasn't been. But how is it redone? How is this reassessment done? And how is it calculated? Because in order for me to challenge that, I need to understand that. And then for anybody else. And I feel like you're going to end up with a lot of people challenging this because the numbers have gone up so drastically. My home went up more than double in the assessed value. So I don't know how that can be, and how it's 25% higher than my purchase price of 3 years ago. I don't understand that. So maybe in your answering of questions, that could be done. And also, I think it's something that should be put publicly on the website as to how that is calculated so that a concerned citizen can look and say, oh, that's where they came up with that number from. And secondly, just another comment. 3 of the 5 members are getting much better eye contact and paying attention to what the speakers are saying. There are still a couple of the board members that I wish would spend a little bit less time doodling with their pen. Good night.
Hi, Allison Zagraves, Amherstdale. I'd like to wish everybody, if you didn't know this, this is Sunshine Week. Did y'all know this? Did you know this? Happy Sunshine Week. I would ask that everybody start following Thomas DiNapoli, New York State Controller. This is what he said today on Facebook, today the day that we passed this transparency law that we know has many holes in it. Hopefully my phone will not go blank on me. On Thomas DiNapoli's Facebook page today, I quote Thomas DiNapoli, "It's important to have transparency so New Yorkers are empowered with information they need to hold their elected officials accountable." Thomas DiNapoli, happy Sunshine Week.
Anybody else? Tom, it's you got one time.
I just want to ask about how to challenge your assessment. I'm not good with the computers that well. Can I come into town
Yes,
hall?
you can come talk to the assessor's office.
Assessor? Thank you.
All right, anybody else? If not, I'm going to motion. Dennis, if you're going to speak about my wife or family, I would simply ask you not to, because you started down that path. Is it going to be a regards to my wife or family? If you go down that path, I'm going to tell you you're out of order.
That was a peaceful protest, Brian. Didn't mean to offend anybody, but, you know, with that protest that we had, it was a peaceful protest, Brian.
Continue, Dennis.
The last thing I wanted to say was, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it just seems ironic that it appears that you want to have some kind of a legacy that you're going to leave so that in the future, you know, that the Amherst residents will hopefully, you would think fondly of you. But as time goes on, with the insane spending, I mean, and I could talk for an hour on that, and the increased taxes, that the complete opposite is happening, Brian. I don't know if you realize it, or you maybe really, I mean, to look at you, I really don't think you care, okay? I think that's probably the biggest problem. You really don't care. But you should, but I don't think you do. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm thinking it's not even a legacy anymore. I think you have like some kind of an agenda. And maybe you're tied in with the governor. Maybe you're tied in with, well, I know you're tied in with Mark Polenkarts, because there's 3 members on the board that work full-time for Erie County. Mike, Sean Lavin, and Angela, they all work for Erie County. So it does beg the question, who is running the town of Amherst? Okay? Is Erie County? I mean, I heard a rumor that, you know, during the COVID thing, that Mark Polenkarts called up and said there's a church that meets and, you know, go down and close them down, you know. And if I were the supervisor and the Erie County executive called me up and said, hey, there's a church in your town, which of course, First Amendment again, and they're meeting, right, and go shut them down. You know what I would have said? I would have said, you know what, Mr. Executive, Mr. County Executive, I think you should bring the sheriffs down here and you go close it down, because I'm not going to ask the Amherst police to go close down a church, okay? If they want to meet, that's up to them, you know? That's their First Amendment, you know? And I guess COVID, it really didn't turn out to be, I think they just killed a lot of people in the hospitals, unfortunately. That's another debate for another night. But I think most of the shenanigans started during COVID and then after COVID, when we were not allowed to come to these board meetings, okay? And there's so many things that are wrong. I really think we need a forensic audit by the controller. And the city of Buffalo had a control board that came in about 20 years ago, almost exactly 20 years ago. And they're still there. Yeah, they're still in place. But that's what we need. This board is out of control. They don't care that you people came here tonight. I mean, they seem like they do. 3 minutes is up? Okay, well, I thank the board for letting me speak again.
I have one more thing to say about the assessments. Michelle Coffey, 736 North French Road. It's very apparent that none of us, Brian, I'm over here. Not over there, not up there, here. So please listen to what I have to say. That these assessments are unfair. They're not transparent by any means. In the letters or on the website, I think you should extend the informal assessment deadline date until that information is provided to all of the Amherst residents and Williamsville.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. My name is Harry Conamos, again at 138 California Drive.
I just wanted to take a slight moment here. I was doing some lookup here, and I saw that you had 7.9 million for Westwood. You took 6 million for extra lights, but that should be on a bond like the first time it went through for 33 million. It shouldn't be taken out of our taxes. And then currently the tax increase is 10.5 million, or roughly that 11.4%. And my question, or not my question, but our reserves currently are at a healthy 10% of the budget. If I take that 10%, that means our taxes should have only gone up 1.4%. And then if I take the 7.8 million and the 6 million, we now have 14 million back in reserves. So why can't you tighten your belts and just not spend it? The other thing I want to point out is New York State ruled Westwood to be a Superfund contamination site. There was a big sign at the corner of Sheridan and I think it's Frankhauser coming through there. It's faded right now because the sun has bleached it, but it's been up there for 7 years because I go by daily. My daughter lives over that way, behind that contamination site, our Love Canal. Thank you.
Hi, Isabel Posner. I'm on Ruskin. I'm tired. I know everyone here is tired. But this reoccurring theme of transparency or their lack of is just really frustrating. And I think, especially with the irony of Sunshine Week being today, I think as residents, this being the public expression, where you get to hear what your constituents are saying, who've elected you, and then you seem to blatantly disregard everything that we say. And I don't understand. I'm trying to understand how this board works. It's really frustrating as a resident to even come to these meetings now, but we're still going to come because it seems that if we don't, it seems to get worse. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. We are spending millions of dollars we don't have. The light project, who knows what the Boulevard Mall project's going to be. We've got the Amherst Museum project. This is money we don't have. And the frustrating thing is when you have things like the Ethics Committee, which Mr. Lavin, I emailed you on January 8th, and you kindly responded to me by saying, "Thank you for bringing your concerns to our attention, Ms. Posner. We understand the importance of transparency and accountability within our committee, the Board of Ethics. I apologize for any disappointment caused by the recent lack of meetings, because this committee hasn't met since, I think, 2020. Rest assured we are actively working to address this matter. Regarding the replacement of Mr. Pierre Islam, we're in the early stages of selection process. Where are we on that process? We aim to, this is back to your email to me, we aim to choose a qualified individual who will contribute effectively to the Board of Ethics. Once the selection is complete, we will inform you of the new member's appointment." What's today, March 11th? Yes. I still haven't received a follow-up email, and according to the agenda, section 9, number 11, it looks like there's, do I understand this correctly, there's 2 vacancies, or did you appoint 2 people? I'm not clear because I don't understand how to read your, so did you appoint 2 new people? Oh, there's 2 vacancies now, okay. So I'm frustrated, we're all frustrated. I don't like the contentiousness of these meetings, but it's, when people feel like they're being dismissed and minimized and not listened to, that's what happens. Thank you.
Anybody else? Got a motion to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Respond to some of the questions and comments that I had. First, on regarding police hirings, so we did create an additional position this year within the police force. In 23, we hired 17 positions. When we hired those positions, we changed the amount of surplus that we had to roll into the 24 budget as opposed to what we had from 22 to 23 to roll in. Regarding retirements and why retirements don't create immediate savings, especially with police, but when there's a big retirement for somebody who's been here a lot of years, there's a lot of buyout that has to happen. We have to buy out sick and personal time. Police retire with benefits, so there's still a continued benefits package, but ultimately those retirements all add up, and they came at pretty close to at once over the past couple of years. Nevertheless, we've kept our police hirings as close to full as we can keep the police department. The highway department, we did not cut jobs. This board actually created 6 new positions within highway in labor and maintenance positions. Regarding the Boulevard Mall and are we buying it, if we purchase it, it will be for the same price that we sell it for. It's a transaction on paper. It's meant to basically take and use the town's eminent domain process to cure leases. The product itself is not something that we want to remain in town hands, and we have to use revenue-backed bonds, which have to be insured by the purchase cost. The goal is basically not to hold it for any period of time. I'm going to get to that in a moment. Regarding the trying to look at regarding the conversations about visual aids within the new transparency law required summary, I think the way I would read that is 2 pages of text and visual aids. In addition, visual aids could be anything from charts and graphs to, I assume that's what they would mostly be. And I would assume that those are going to be prepared as we currently release a lot of that information in our budget. We'll try to streamline it and create descriptions. Regarding the idea of budget workshops, I don't hate the idea. I think it's something we need to look at. I know Jerry mentioned that. I think that ultimately those are items that we could talk to and talk through as we go through the budget process. Reporting on contaminants at Westwood. We have seen old reports, and we've met many times with DEC regarding the old reports. What's obvious is that there was some cherry picking of sites and information in those reports that allowed the site to be listed as a brownfield. The town board is testing everything to a great detail and to a great extent as we move through the projects. Right now, we have completed the first testing of the first 19 acres. We do not have, including on greens and fairways, we do not have contaminant levels that are described and pointed to in the old reports. Those should be online. If they're not, I will make sure they get to the website. We certainly have nothing to hold back there. Regarding the website and the deputy supervisor role, Councilwoman Berger was the deputy supervisor a couple of years back, Councilwoman Buckeye last year, Councilman Lavin this year. Any website reporting was an error. Oftentimes there's old information on websites and we don't know where we catch them or not catch them all. Regarding the audit and regarding audits, we're audited every year by a third party. That audit is sent to the state for review. I'm quite content with the level and detail of our audit. We've broadened their scope and asked them to audit more of our town operations over the years. Nevertheless, that is something that we actively participate in. Regarding challenges, somebody brought up that challenges are costly through an Article 77 process. We have two types of challenges regarding the assessment. Both of those challenges do not need to cost residents anything. You do not need to hire attorneys for those challenge types. There is an Article 77 process that New York State makes available to anybody at any time. That assessment in that Article 77 is what brought us to nearly being in court regarding the Boulevard Mall years ago. The amount that the then property owners wanted to lower the mall to was less than what we settled at. I did not say I would deal with the settlement. That's up to our assessors and to our attorneys. However, the Jamal people did not lower it as much as they could. This year, if you're at the mall, you could make an argument that they could have lowered it. The courts have found the mall to be economically blighted and sided with the town in Article 4 in an Article 4 challenge, an Article 2 challenge regarding whether or not the mall was what constituted economic blight. Nevertheless, we did settle for a value higher than what they had originally asked. I think we settled at 17. They had originally sought 10. The bottom line is the mall is a depreciated product, and rather than let it sit empty, the town board's working on a way to return it back to productive use. Regarding the use of prevailing wage in our bidding, all town projects, any project in the state of New York done for the public and is part of a governmental project is subject to prevailing wage. We have, I have a note here about the challenge process. Again, the challenge process is relatively simple. Our assessors and our Board of Assessment Review are open to understanding why somebody would challenge their assessment. Regarding information out, there is a video, I believe, online. If it's not, we'll make sure something gets up there regarding how the assessors prepare that information, and that should be published online. Regarding the Northtown Plaza, the bottom line was the Northtown Plaza was sitting there empty. The town board had taken no action on the site. And then as the site looked to sit there for a second year, I started in our team started to fight to get buildings erected so that it could at least be assessed values based on buildings completed on site. It's going to continue to be a fight. The town had no recourse in the matter, was prepared under an old zoning. It's something that we're going to continue to have to fight for and fight with. As far as why do we do reassessments, we do assessments because at the end of the day, at any one point in time, there are people paying tax at an assessed rate that is not equitable. They're being overcharged, and it's not just the more expensive homes. It's oftentimes spread throughout the community in different values. And so you assess so that you create equity and create understanding of what property values are. In terms of Erie County and school districts, we're already brought up our county rates and our school district rates we already have a multiplier put on us because we're at 60%. Ultimately, we by going to 100%, you remove that multiplier, and what you're left with is a true assessed value, and other communities begin to fall off in terms of what percent assessment they're at. Regarding the sources and basis of decisions, again, I would refer everybody to the website. If there's still questions regarding our assessments, ultimately our assessors are hired through an RFP process. That's laid out. Those RFPs certainly are public. When we hire assessors, they tell us how they get to their decisions. Regarding, they are available ultimately. What's that? Well, understood. Like I said, I'm okay. Regarding my full-time position, I do this full-time. I'm here before most people in the morning, and I'm here after most people leave. I did start a company, and it's because in 2 years I'm term limited, and I am not returning to the private sector for my past employer. So I began a company. It's run by my business partner, and that is my intended next chapter. So I'm going to just leave it at that. That's a private company, and it does not do work in the town of Amherst or with developers that do work in the town of Amherst. Regarding the musical fair ownership, musical fair does not own the building. The town of Amherst owns the building. We have rights and access to utilize the building for town functions. There is a non-compete clause that is specific to theater productions. So musical fair, professional theater productions. So the town does retain access to that facility. Regarding code enforcement, we have, we're not the DOL or the DOH. The Department of Labor and the Department of Health regulate hazardous materials on construction sites. Our town code enforcement deals with the conditions of building demolition and safety factors not related to contaminant. So ultimately, Department of Health and Department of Labor have to weigh in as to whether or not there's a contaminant. There is and has to be on any development or any demolition site third-party testing of contaminant removal and third-party air monitoring. And that is the case at the site at Main and Fruhoff, or the case anywhere else. Regarding blocking of sidewalk, I agree we need to deal with that. I was unaware of it. It's something that we'll talk about. Regarding surrounding towns and comparisons, because I've heard a lot about other towns not needing to tax increase at the same rate we did. Our tax rate is still significantly lower than many of our surrounding towns. If you look at the county's website and compare tax rates by town, you'll see right there what the rates are.
Don't even know how the assessments are done.
How can you figure out the tax? Again, so I'm answering questions, and then after. Okay, thank you. In terms of the LED lighting, all of the LED project is currently available on the website, including the project timeline, the preliminary financial projections, final design projections, and NIPA project financials. That is searchable on the website. It's all listed under LED streetlight conversion project. Regarding the musical fair building itself, the exterior, while it might look ornate, is actually light gauge steel, relatively simple construction materials. Regarding the income from Northtown, the town currently receives $3,500 a month in lease for the Westwood parking lots. That lease is being used in maintenance of that facility and to reimburse costs of our labor and mowing. I'm going to leave it at that for the evening. I thank you all. A motion to adjourn the board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.